My mind has been racing back and forth from 2006 to 2010 since Tuesday afternoon's shocking news came out that retired two-time Cy Young winner Roy Halladay died in a plane crash. This hit home. I covered Halladay as a Phillies beat writer and was in the press box at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia for his October 2010 National League Division Series no-hitter. The best pitched game I've ever seen in person. I also was not only friendly with late Yankees pitcher Cory Lidle, but in 2006 we flew a two-seat small plane together 8 months before he died flying his new single-engine plane into a Manhattan Upper East Side apartment building. Lidle was just 34 and he left behind a wife and young boy. Halladay was only 40 with a wife and 2 sons. Hearing the first details of Halladay's death were eerie. He crashed his newly bought $389,000 amphibious Icon A5 aircraft off the coast of Florida about 35 miles northwest of Tampa near New Port Richey. 12 things you must know about Yankees manager search. The Tampa Bay region was where I was Lidle's very first passenger after he obtained his pilot's license early in 2006. Lidle was with the Phillies at the time and he phoned me after a first week of spring training practice asking to me go flying with him. I had to be talked into it because I'd never been in a small plane and always was afraid of them. Reluctantly, I agreed to fly with a very inexperienced pilot despite knowing a few of his Phillies teammates had refused his invite. I promptly drove to a convenience store to purchase a disposable camera. Cell phone cameras didn't exist in 2006 and then headed over to the St. Pete Clearwater Airport. Lidle filled out some paperwork. He rented a two-seat Cessna for about $87. Then we were up in the air. I remember Lidle bragging about the state-of-the-art GPS that was between us as he flew over my Clearwater Beach condo and then the Sunshine Skyway Bridge during our hour in the air. I remember Lidle confidently pointing out place after place where he could land the plane if something went wrong. I remember Lidle, illegally, I'm sure, somehow talking me into steering the plane for a few seconds with my yoke. I was scared to death pulling back just a little and seeing the nose of the plane slightly go up. What I remember most is Lidle the next day seeing a selfie picture that I took of us in the air and making fun of me because the microphone from my headset was off to the side instead of near my mouth. "You don't look like I pilot," Lidle told me. Lidle was traded to the Yankees that July with outfielder Bobby Abreu for prospects. That October, I attended Game 1 of the Yankees-Tigers American League Division Series at Yankee Stadium with a buddy who had season tickets in row 2 of the right field bleachers. Lidle noticed me during BP and yelled up to me. He told me that he'd purchased a new plane that was a lot nicer than the one we were in and he kept it at Teterboro Airport. He added that he planned to fly the aircraft back home to Southern California after the '06 season, and that he planned to use it for golf trips to Pebble Beach. A few days later, the Yankees lost their playoff series in 4 games, and during locker room clean-out day Lidle gave writers a quote that said, "We were outplayed in every phase. We got out-hit. We got out-pitched. We got out-hustled. We got out-managed. We got out everything." Ed. Quote. The outmanaged quote led Mike Francesca and Christopher Russo into verbally attacking Lidle on their WFAN radio, Mike and the Mad Dog show. They wrongly took it as criticizing Joe Torre, whom I knew Lidle greatly respected. Hearing the criticism while watching the simulcast of the radio show on Yes, I texted Lidle to fill him in. He called me right away to tell me he was going to call into the radio show to stick up for himself, which he did. An hour later, after Lidle was yelled at by the WFAN hosts on air, he called me back to ask how he did. I fibbed and said he did well. A day later, Lidle lost his life the same way Yankees star catcher Thurman Munson lost his in August 1979 when He was a 32-year-old in the prime of his career. Several years earlier, my childhood hero, Roberto Clemente, died in a plane crash on New Year's Eve 1972, a few months after the great right fielder recorded his 3-0-0-0th and final hit, all of them with the Pittsburgh Pirates. One of my most prized possessions is a 1967 game-used Clemente bat that sits in my man cave near one of Lidle's Phillies game jerseys and an A1 newspaper press plate from October 7, 2010 with my story of Halladay's playoff no-hitter. It's hard to believe Halladay now also is gone in a small plane crash. I didn't get to know Halladay well because I didn't make many Phillies road trips in 2010. His first season in Philadelphia after being traded by the Toronto Blue Jays. His intensity, especially on his face during his pitching days, stood out as much as his talent. Halladay was a great pitcher who became greater during the fifth of his 8 trips to the All-Star Game, the one held at the old Yankee Stadium in 2008. During batting practice, Yankees closer Mariano Rivera had a ball in his hand and showed Halladay how he threw his signature pitch. Halladay had thrown cutters, but not with great success, until he switched to Rivera's grip beginning with his next start. When Halladay became a Philly, he was in his prime and joining a club that had just been to 2 World Series in a row, winning the first in 2008 and losing the second to the Yankees in 2009. His 2010 season was as good as any I've seen from any pitcher. He was 21-10 with a .244 ERA in a July perfect game in Miami. Halladay's Game 1 NLDS start was his postseason debut. And again he was close to perfect, retiring 27 Cincinnati Reds hitters and walking one in a 4-0 Phillies win. My best memory of that night is being in the Phillies clubhouse when Halladay entered after an on-field post-game interview to loud cheers from all of his teammates. The last time I saw Halladay pitch in person was Game 5 of the 2011 NLDS at Citizens Bank Park. The night of the St. Louis Cardinals clincher, Halladay allowed a first-inning run, then nothing else in an 8-inning gem. But his former Blue Jays teammate and close friend Chris Carpenter was a little better in a 1-0 Cardinals victory. The next May, Halladay was shut down with a shoulder surgery, and that was the beginning of the end of his playing days. Sporadic arm problems over 2 seasons led to Halladay retiring in December 2013 with a 203-105 record and .338 ERA over 16 seasons. Numbers great enough that he'll get my Hall of Fame vote when he goes on the ballot in December 2018. Lidle will approve of my vote. He knew how great Halladay was. In 2003, Halladay was 22-7 pitching in a Blue Jays rotation that included a 12-game winner named Cory Lidle. Randy Miller may be reached at rmiller@advancemedia.com. Follow him on Twitter at RandyMiller. Find NJ.com on Facebook.